Chapter 7. Sunny. I threw her inside once we entered the chapel and she fell to the ground. There was something about this girl that wasn't right. I could see it. The second I saw her, I felt it like a bolt of lightning in my gut, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. My gut never led me astray. Arlen always said it was the easiest and best sign if you paid enough attention. So if I wanted to find Frollo's secrets for him, then I needed to investigate every option. A mysterious girl breaking into our chapel and hiding in the woods for hours instead of heading back to campus? That was right at the top of my list of suspicious shit. Jeez, dude. Chill, Felix told me, not bothering to lower his voice or hide the scowl on his face. She's the fucking victim here, remember? Is she now? I asked, looking directly at her, crossing my arms over my chest. What's your name? I asked the silver-haired girl, melted across my floor in a teary puddle, but she didn't look up or answer. I am not either of my brothers. I don't know what you did to Corvin to make him do that to you, and I don't have the patience that Felix has. I'll ask you one more time, and you will regret it if you don't answer me. What's your name? Romina, she said softly. Romina what? Just Romina. She shook her head, refusing to meet my gaze. She was the kind of pretty I'd only read about in books, the kind that could never get transferred into real life. She was wretchedly filthy, disgusting, so how the fuck was she so stunning? It was entirely too bothersome. The kind of coincidence that could only be planned, a distraction, a trap. Okay, just Romina. What were you doing in my brother's room? Felix asked her, getting down on one knee in front of her. Fucking hell. I could see the look in his eyes exactly for what it fucking was. His next hyperfixation. I didn't give a fuck what he planned on doing with her, as long as we got our shit under control. And right now, it was far from that. And Claude Frollo found significant evidence to get us expelled. He'll get to keep his funding, and we'll lose out on everything meant to be ours. She didn't answer or bother to look back up. I sighed again, the weight of the entire day coming down on me. Romina, I commanded in a stern tone, and she lifted her head to look at me, eyes wide and ready to listen. The corner of my lip turned up involuntarily. She was a quick learner. I didn't think there was anyone living here, she said, looking down again. I don't accept lies, Romina. You have one more chance, I warned her, and she crossed her arms over her knees and bowed her head down. Hey, Felix said in a hushed and gentle tone, fully kneeling at her side as he stroked his fingers through her hair. At first, she flinched at the touch, but in the end, she didn't oppose his petting. She cried, he soothed. It was like that for almost half an hour. The sound of my feet impatiently tapping on the marble floor echoed, and she looked up, a nervous expression painting her face. Do you want Sunny to go away, Romina? Do you want to just talk to me? He asked, making me roll my eyes with annoyance. But she lifted her head up and nodded. Fucking great. I'm not leaving, I protested, and Felix cut me a sharp look. I'll sit over there at best. I pointed to a single pew we'd left in the chapel. It was the only one that was salvageable from before we renovated it. Felix begged me to keep it. Apparently, he was having some sort of moment about preserving old shit. We pushed it against the wall, and surprisingly, it didn't look too bad. He whispered something in her ear. I couldn't make out, and she gave him a soft smile and nodded her head. He wiped her tears and helped her stand before he shepherded her over to our brand new couch, disregarding the fact that she was literally filthy, covered in whatever the fuck she had been rolling all over in those woods. I winced when she sat down, doing my best to contain my twitching upper lip. I'll order one of those little steam cleaners from the Nile. It'll come in the morning, he winked at me. I will actually slit your fucking throat if you don't stop ordering shit from them. I scolded at him, but he just pressed his fingers to his lips to shush me. He directed his attention back to her and murmured too softly for me to hear anything. She didn't speak. She seemed to be answering his questions by nodding or shaking her head. She had these giant blue, anime-like eyes that stared up at him like he was some sort of protector here to save her. She didn't need to be looking at him like that. He was weak enough to let someone like her outfox him until losing his heart with a few bats of those giant eyelashes. Felix was the youngest, but because of Corvin's medical condition, he had found himself the most fit Escura to head their household. Not that it fucking mattered anymore. The whole idea that the satanic shrine would ever be what it used to be was laughable. A bunch of fucking orphans with only an old man with no blood ties to us who decided to raise us. He was supposed to shape us into the men he wanted us to become for the sake of carrying out his legacy, to keep the rituals and traditions going for the rest of the followers. A fucking joke. There was no denying the magic was real or arguing that it wasn't powerful, that it didn't control us. It did. But to think tens of thousands of members would pay any attention to us was insane. We were just fucking kids. Arlen was convinced it wouldn't matter, and that after we performed our ascension rituals, the Covenant would only see their leader. With his daughter dead and gone, he was really just putting all his cards into one basket. I knew his rituals like the back of my hand. I had studied them all, every sigil, every lore in that grimoire. But I didn't know if I wanted to. I didn't want anything. Unlike Felix, I had no desire, no urge, no need to claim anything for myself. There was nothing that kept me going other than the sheer need to live in spite of the asshole who made me. I went through the motions. I wore my human costume. I played along. "I'll be right back," he told her, striding over to me. She was still hunched, wrapping her arms over her bent knees and pressing them against her chest. I didn't speak. I just waited. "She said she's not a student," he told me quietly. "Interesting. Or maybe she's trying not to get in trouble." I narrowed my eyes at her, wondering what the hell the deal with this girl was. There's no way she came out here on her own. No one can get out here on foot. "Unless she was already here," I told him. "Risa didn't know who she was," he mentioned. "Who?" "Doesn't matter. No one had ever seen her around here. And what the fuck is she wearing? She looks like the ghost of Christmas past," he added. "Ebenezer," I corrected him. "What?" he asked me. "Ebenezer is the one wearing the nightgown, not the ghost," I explained. And he shook his head, like he couldn't believe I was getting into cinematics right now. "I don't even know who the fuck you are sometimes." He shook his head at me and made his way back over to the girl. "Romina." He whispered something else in her ear, and she nodded again, a soft smile softening around her lips. Felix was good like that, good at convincing others he wasn't as dangerous as he really was. But once he had sunk his teeth into you, it was over. We were different in that way. I took what I wanted. He made you think you wanted it too. He stood and stepped over to the fridge while I looked her up and down, studying this brand new creature in front of me. Unbuttoning my collar, I leaned back, resting my arms on the pew while I watched Felix walk back from the freezer, holding a pint of ice cream and 2 spoons. They sat in silence, sharing it, taking turns digging into the ice cream and shoveling it into their mouths. Every few minutes or so, she would break down, whimper a bit, and then sob again. Felix would squeeze her hand to comfort her, and after a few moments, she would just pick up the spoon to continue the cycle. Once he got up to throw the empty container away, I stood. "Romina," I said, and she wiped her neck. She whipped her neck, back to look at me, that nervous fear still so visibly printed in her stare. Up. Her eyes searched for Felix, but he disappeared from the main room, probably to check on his brother. "He's busy. You get me. Now stand. You're dirtying up my house." She didn't move. I stepped closer until I stood just above her, her eyes full of a strange bewilderment I have never seen anywhere else until now. I gripped her hair in my hand and pulled her up to her feet, ignoring her cries of pain. Ah! I'm not a fan of repeating myself. Got it? She was a fragile little thing, timid and weak. Yes, she trembled out, looking up at me. She might have been dirty as hell, but her skin still looked soft to touch, her bright blue eyes glimmering with twice as much life than mine, and her stare giving her innocence away, telling far more secrets than my own. I thought it was fear I saw, but as I looked closely, I noticed something else, a curiosity, a hunger inside her. I rubbed my thumb along the underside of her jaw, and I lifted her chin up so I could take a better look at her face. When's the last time you took a bath? I twisted my nose at her. She tried to recoil, but I tightened my hold on her hair, forcing a whine from her. I don't know, she shook her head, and my confusion only growing. Where do you need us to take you, Romina? Is there someone you want us to call? I asked her, trying to be as gentle as Felix, but unable to strip the commanding tone from my voice. I don't know what you mean, she stuttered out, and I exhaled, quickly losing my patience. What are you doing here? I asked her. She shook her head again. Answer me. No. Her response was tiny and meek like her. What are you doing in my house? I asked again. Your house? She asked with a dramatic flair, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. It's not Frollo's house anymore. I loosened my grip on her hair without letting go, rubbing my fingers along the likely sore spots where I'd been pulling too tight. She relaxed into my hand, leaning into my touch. This girl was pliable as hell. I fucking loved it. Please let me go, she said in a barely audible voice. And where will you go once I do? I brought my face as close to hers as possible and waited for her response. The corners of her eyes wrinkled from how tightly she forced them shut, as if she was hoping to disappear if she squeezed hard enough. One more chance. Where do you belong, Romina? I asked her. Her eyes darted down, and she shrank away from my hold back into the couch. Felix appeared at the front of the hallway and crossed his arms over his chest. Mina, he beckoned her, and her chin turned sharply toward him. He tilted his chin toward the end of the dark hall, and she darted over to his side without looking back at me. Mina. He directed her to a stool under the marble island, and she sat while he reached into the refrigerator. Are you feeding her? I asked, and he frowned, looking back at me from the sandwich he was making. She said she was hungry. He shrugged, walking over to me. So we're in agreement, right? Not a fucking ghost, he said, with a type of seriousness that only made me roll my eyes. That wasn't how spirits worked. He knew better than to entertain such ridiculous thoughts. I already knew Frollo had a hand in this somehow. He had a hand in everything. It wasn't enough that he would exploit the persecution of Lolita Escura, and it was personally responsible for her death, but he had used it as a badge to advance himself. He was just a headmaster then, a clergyman, but he led the people on a holy crusade against Lolita. She was arrested, tried, and found guilty within 6 days. The execution came before the week ended. What if those myths are kind of true? Felix asked me, bringing me out of my chaotic thoughts. She's not a fucking ghost, I snapped, and he shook his head at me. I mean, what if she's Frollo's? She keeps saying she doesn't have anywhere to go. Something isn't adding up. He rubbed the stubble on his chin while he thought out loud. I didn't need to think about it. It made plenty of sense. I headed for the hallway and pushed open my bedroom door, digging through unpacked boxes to find what I knew was surely there. Under the bullshit, I pulled the long rope out and walked back into the mass room. Before she could turn back to look at me, I had already wrapped the rope around her chest and arms, not just once, but twice over. I looped it into a knot and pulled her off the stool with a yank, and she yelped loudly before falling onto the floor on her chest. "What are you doing?" Felix asked me, the scowl engraved deep on his forehead anytime I did something less than gentle to this girl. He helped her up, caressing her face with the back of his hand softly. "Getting the answers we need so we can get the fuck out of here," I told him, pulling on the rope once again. "Let's go, Romina. Let's see if Daddy will claim you." "What?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Lie to me. I dare you." I held my face just a mere centimeter away from hers. She didn't respond, but she didn't look away. Some sort of seed of bravery growing in her spine. It wasn't enough to confirm my suspicions. She didn't challenge me and walked behind a few steps while I dragged her with the rope. I ignored Felix's protest while he slung words like savage and monster at me for dragging the girl a mile across campus barefoot. I wasn't the monster here. No, that was another man.